All right, so it's after 6:30. The Middleton Public Works Committee is meeting, and we do have a quorum of members present. We have Chair Myers, Don Knorr, Brandon Lang, Alder Nairo, Alder Wilkus present.
All right, thank you, Sean. So we have a quorum present. I call the meeting of the Public Works Committee to order. The first item on our agenda is the minutes of our last meeting, 1/22/24. Are there any corrections that anyone would like to offer to those minutes? Hearing none, I accept the minutes as they have been attached. I ask unanimous consent to move item number 9 on our agenda up for consideration as if it were the second item on our agenda. I believe we're joined by a number of concerned parties on the item. All right, hearing no objection, item number 9 is now up for consideration on our agenda. For those of you who are attending your first committee meeting, the comments from members of the public are recognized at the discretion of the chair. If you want to speak, raise your hand. I will call in order of raised hands. That is how we go about things here. So, Lisa, this was a concern that you brought up. So would you like to walk us through?
Sure, thank you. And thank you to you and Sean for adding this to the agenda. I am interested in hearing from the folks who are here. I asked for this to be on the agenda because Brian brought it to my attention. She is a constituent. There was an incident involving her son, Henry, at the intersection of Century Avenue and High Road last week. And it's something that, well, Alder Wilkus and I have suggested that there's a need for some sort of process orientation for us to know what do we do when we have a request for some sort of traffic or pedestrian safety improvement. Alder Wilkus and I have been on council for 2 years, and I don't think we've actually gone over the process. I know I get a lot of requests from constituents, and I sometimes refer them to Sean. Other times I hold on to them waiting for the appropriate time. This one seemed to need larger discussion. And so I wanted to use this to help the committee understand what happened, and also discuss what the process is for getting some safety improvements before this committee. Obviously, budget's already set. There's nothing that we can do in a short period of time, but as we look ahead to 2025's budget, which will be in that process before we know it, I would like to know if there's anything we can do to address this specific situation, which I don't think it may be an isolated situation in that Henry was actually struck. But I know I've heard complaints from other people about Century and High Road. And so that's my intro to it. And I would welcome hearing from our members of the public.
Brianne, would you like to go first?
Sure. I wrote it down so I don't.
Okay.
Because I sometimes talk
And you
fast.
can sit at the table.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for adding this to agenda, and thank you for your response. But I want to speak about the incident that happened on High and Century, or Park and Century, I think. And yes, last week my son was hit by a car crossing the intersection. Luckily, he wasn't hurt because he had turned around to talk to his friend, and his backpack was hit, not him. It could have been gone incredibly differently, and this conversation could be a different conversation we're having right now. Thankfully, it is not. But it did prompt me to question, like, if the right people know about that intersection, the challenges that the kids face every morning on their way to school, what is being done about it, and if this isn't the right people to contact, who are the right people to contact? Is it the school board, who I did reach out to as well? And what can we do to get this on people's radar to get something changed? I was informed by the Middleton police that less than 5 accidents in the last 5 years have happened at this intersection. I know 2 of those people, which is crazy. But the amount of parents that have also reached out, just talking to me about close calls, those aren't recorded by the Middleton police. There's an increased traffic coming into the new neighborhood that's being built down there. The construction vehicles are advised to use that road. And yeah, for now, it's the construction vehicles, but next it's the residents and the increased traffic. It'll only get busier. I saw on the agenda, like the timing of the lights are being considered, but I don't know if that's the right thing that should be looked at. Is there more awareness that can be done? If someone is crossing, are there lights, different ways that crossing intersection could look? Maybe adjust the rules regarding the timing of the day, like when you can turn onto that road, when you can't turn. I know that's in another area of town down on Allen. Does the crosswalk need to look differently? Because it is students that are crossing there. But in the summer it's kids going to the pool. What needs to be done to make this a safer route for students to get to school? Is this, is this where we solve it here, or is it with the school? What needs to be done? How can I help? Where does the awareness need to be? That's pretty much what I came to say. Thanks.
May I ask, your son was crossing Century, the car was turning from Century onto Park or from High onto Century?
The car was turning from High onto Century, going down toward the Quick Trip,
So a right turn,
right turn.
northbound to eastbound.
I'm assuming on red.
I don't know what that was, if it was on red or on green, because it happens with green. It is a very quick light that like 2 cars can get through. So if you have a green, you're still trying to edge and go right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I travel a little lot.
Yeah.
So you're talking from, because so they were coming south on High?
Don't know north, south, east and west.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
They were going south and they were turning west.
That they were going south, turning
West.
towards west.
West, yeah, I'm just, because I was,
Oh.
or
so there is a left turn lane there for,
Mhm.
so they were in the right, okay. I was just looking at the turn, because there's no turn lanes on Century, which I think
Right.
is the real problem with that
That's another
intersection.
Yeah.
Because I have seen people while somebody is waiting to turn north or south onto High Park Street, and somebody will like come,
Yep.
they're like, oh, you're turning, I'm gonna go around, and if you're in the crosswalk and they don't see you,
Yep.
I feel like that's a real problem at that intersection a lot too.
Time of day too with the sun
Yeah.
as well. Like
Yeah.
you can't see because the sun is there as well when you're turning and stuff going that way.
Yeah.
So this was a southbound driver heading westbound, still a right turn,
Mhm.
and your son was in the crosswalk of Century Avenue.
Yes.
Not
Almost finishing his, almost.
I think you were starting, right?
Oh, you,
Yeah, we were starting.
you're on your way to school.
Their way to school.
Got it.
heading south.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this gonna be part of the Century Avenue?
Road diet. plan?
Yeah,
Well, that's a
or is that further east?
discussion of a study that would include, I think, this piece though, because it was going to be like west of Donna Drive.
Mhm.
From like Donna.
No, because Donna is east of this. Oh, it'll be west. Oh,
Yeah.
so
But
a
then
little bit-
this would be in it.
Oh, because I thought the
Everything
road
going
diet
to
was
the
gonna,
bridge.
yeah, if this is Donna Drive and points west, then this is the second intersection that would be included. There's Black Cherry Lane.
But that still would take a study and it would take county involvement. The traffic signals are under city, the traffic signals are under city of Middleton jurisdiction, so we control those. And without knowing any details, because a police report isn't available to me yet. All I could do was just check the timings to see if they're sufficient, so that if someone pushes a button and gets the walk light, they have sufficient time to cross the street. And that's satisfactory. So,
Sean, do you know if our signal lights work like some in Madison where they get the walk symbol at least a second or two before the light turns green for the same?
I don't think this one has a leading pedestrian interval yet, but we do have it in this year's budget for a consultant to look at our traffic signals to see what the potential is for programming in leading pedestrian intervals.
That might be a lower cost option, because I walked in Madison and that makes a big difference because it gives drivers a chance to see people starting to cross before they start going straight or turning to pedestrian.
I think Donna.
We have it at some signals. I think
Oh, okay.
it's one of them,
Donna does. have-
Yeah.
Mhm.
but not
Crossing
all of
sector.
them. And so this year's budget, we're gonna have a consultant look at all.
So it sounds more like it was really an inattentive drive, just turning right into a child.
I haven't seen that police report.
Yeah, I know we
Yeah.
haven't, but you know,
From what I found out, it is they got failure to yield to a pedestrian,
pedestrian.
even though they fled the scene.
Yeah, that
Yes.
That is,
Yeah.
surprised.
I don't know how I go about like questioning that, like.
Mm,
You know,
It looks like we have another comment from.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
If you could please just state your name. for
Yeah,
the-
sure.
yeah.
So Courtney Hall, I also live in the area and I have a daughter that attends Cromie as well. I drive her every day because I think it is a dangerous walk. But I was just gonna add, is it possible that the crosswalk is just a walking crosswalk for a period of time? I think that's kind of what you were leading to, like it turns to walk before it turns green. Right?
Right,
Like, could it
so-
just be a crossing walk before it's a green light for the drivers, or could it also or be no right on red or no right while pedestrians are in the crosswalk or something like that?
So those are all different ideas.
Yeah.
So the first one is that leading pedestrian interval.
Yeah.
Typically, that's programmed in so that a pedestrian pushing the button gets the walk signal,
Yeah.
right? 3 seconds before concurrent traffic gets a green light,
Yeah,
which gives that pedestrian then an opportunity to be out in the street
Yes.
and somewhat more visible to a driver that's only marginally paying attention, but still using part of their windshield,
Yes.
to say, oh, I should go here. right?
yes,
No right turn on red is a heavier situation
Yeah.
where it's just disallowed if you have a red light, but it wouldn't stop a green light conflict with a
Right.
concurrent pedestrian crossing,
Yeah.
right? Which is I guess its own problem, right? And the other one that I think you mentioned was an independent phase where it's head only, no
Yeah.
vehicles go anywhere. So it's like all red.
Correct.
And only pedestrians can cross the
Yeah.
street. That's a lot more unusual around here, where the driver expectation is, well, somebody's going.
Yeah.
In this case, nobody would be going.
yeah,
And I've heard of that in much bigger cities with really high density, lots of pedestrian
Sure.
movements. And in some cases, they even just call it a scramble. And I
Yeah.
mean, you could walk diagonally across the intersection because no cars are going in.
yeah,
That we don't see a lot. We don't have any in Middleton.
Does the
I
square
don't know
have
of
that?
any in Madison.
The square has that in Madison, actually.
The square does?
downtown, I think there's.
Downtown, around the square, but I mean, that's again, very heavy pedestrian area. That's- In fact, cars are discouraged from being. up there.
I haven't seen that one or used.
Yeah, it's
that.
any, like State Street, when you come up to this Capitol Square,
Yeah,
that corner, it's all pedestrian.
so that's just red. Yeah,
But again, it's very pedestrian heavy and cars are discouraged
sure.
than the situation where it's more car centric than pedestrian centric.
So the first thing I'd be interested in looking into is what is a leading pedestrian interval do
Yeah.
for us here, especially given the balance. We don't have as many vehicles trying to get through, so if they have a little bit of extra delay, my first guess is
Yeah.
that's fine.
I live at that intersection, will live.
Well, and thinking as someone who drives south on
Yeah.
the road, I think no right turn during the morning, school commute is feasible, perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough space in that, there's a left turn lane, but I think it only holds a couple of cars, so that might create a little bit of a bottleneck, but.
Yeah,
Are you thinking no right turn permanently during?
No.
Just when the walk lights up?
No, no right turn, just like how, Allen and, well, when Century meets Allen, they're in the morning.
There's a.
7 to 9
signal.
Yeah, you can't turn between what, 7 and 9, can't turn right on red.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Something like that.
and Mary Ann's had her hand up.
I just wanted to add to this. My boys are in 7th grade with Brianna 7th grade. And 5th grade, I walk them all to school every day and back. I used to, I saw so many near misses. It's not a one-off. Whatever decision you make, it has to be more robust than just, not at this time, not at this time. I don't know what your budget allows, a camera, but it is consistently. I've seen Middleton city trucks have cut me off in the crosswalk when I have the walk sign. Pedestrian deaths in intersections are increasing across the country due to road rage. With these increased housing projects going up on High Street, this is only going to be more pedestrian walkway. If Middleton could get ahead of this and thankfully not have any more serious accidents, that would be so appreciated, I think, to everybody in the community. But this is not just 5 accidents. I've reported them to Middleton Police when I've seen them. But something robust needs to be done.
And just for history, there has been a bus driver shortage. So in turn, they have decreased the amount of buses that actually service these students. And the parents in our entire neighborhood now are either having their children walk or they're driving. So it's increased car traffic, myself included, taking my kids. And then it's increased kids that are a little closer are just opting to walk more so than they were before in the past couple of years.
I will say, Sean, I do appreciate the work that you did on the memo on the light timing for the minutes or for the agenda. But I will say that when I am crossing this intersection with my 5-year-old son, I would like a little bit more time, either in the form of lead time or something else. And I'm sure that a lot of parents with young children would feel the same way. Crossing, so.
Yeah, the city
yeah.
could look at a different walking speed in its programming. You know, right now, we're using the federal standards for that and
Yeah,
doing what we can to meet or exceed it, in some cases just barely. Here, we're comfortably better.
yeah.
So do we need to get the school involved at all too? I mean, that's kind of my other thought in my head. Like, I see it as a student issue, student safety. Is that something I should also bring with to the school board to get more support, or if it's funds or if it's awareness?
Yeah, it's not a funding issue so much because that's a city thing.
Would be funding if the school decided to put a crossing guard there.
Yeah.
But the fact that they don't have a crossing guard at Perk and Dunn. Why would they put one?
I think they
Yeah.
don't do it beyond elementary.
No, they have a crossing guard up at the main.
Oh, at Traumery.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
That they also
But
have.
that's the only one.
Sure. I think they had a crossing guard here, but pulled the guard in favor of busing. And then, of course, there's a busing.
Yeah.
And so how long does it take to do these studies for all the signal programming?
For the leading pedestrian.
Yeah, like,
study.
do we have to do a study and then put it in, or can we?
Yeah, the goal is to do the study, right? And then to write a memo summarizing what operational issues we should expect to face. And then have the city make a decision and then do the program.
In the interim, I'm looking at a Google shot and I don't see any school signs. I don't see any signage that is sort of letting people know that kids are, I mean, in north
There is an
North
side is
side
not
on
that
it.
far from that
Yeah.
intersection, and Cromery's not far either. So it kind of surprises me that there's not some signage there. So I'm wondering in the interim if we can, and that might be something that we can do in coordination with the school district, even if it's just something as simple as these pop-up like utility signs. Just to say, I'm
That are-
it's like
that are-
as, no, because like right here, you can see that there's utility work ahead.
Oh,
Even something just to raise awareness that like kids are walking, just exactly the situation
Yeah.
we're talking about. Kids are walking more. There's people that are, this is an active pedestrian intersection and people need to pay attention.
Just something to help drivers be their best selves instead of.
Yeah.
Even we had the police put up it was not really a monitor. At first, it was just a sign saying the speed limit was 30 miles per hour on Pheasant Ranch and High Road. But even one of those signs with a different message saying slow down for kids.
Yeah.
And I guess
Oh,
maybe
like
the
a
school district.
changeable message
Yeah.
sign kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like I think people thought it was monitoring them because it was like, say 30 miles per hour speed limit, and so people would slow down, but then after like a day, everybody knew, oh, it's not really what they sped right through. But
Oh.
that kind of, the same thing we put up on to let people know that Old Creek Road no longer had a left turn onto Century.
Yeah, those are our
Yeah.
message boards.
Yeah.
Is that public
CIS.
message board or public safety?
They're just owned by the city, so
Okay.
whoever sets them out, sets them out.
Dibs.
Another lower cost option might be painting the crosswalks green. I see that in some places where there's heavier pedestrian traffic too. I don't know if we have that in the city, but that's probably something you could do faster or quicker.
Yeah,
Just to
we
make-
don't yet, but we don't yet, but I think if it's on a school route, then I think you can use the fluorescent yellow coloring
On the pavement,
on the pavement.
yeah, that would make it more visible for sure.
What's that?
Oh, I have
see
it. I have
that.
the intersection up on my,
Intersection on his computer and, well, it looks awfully visible.
this is the emptiest I've ever seen this road also on this
Wow.
Google Street View.
Well, it had to be empty to get that great photo.
Yeah.
October 2020.
And the
So it seems like we have a lot of options. What do you propose for a path forward, Sean, given our city processes?
Right, well, I think with the leading pedestrian interval, that's already in process, right? If we want to take on something about doing a sign package, doing a different paint package, I think we should look at it in context of the city. Or, if we're gonna do one, I think we should prepare ourselves to get a lot of interest in others. And then we'll have to develop a policy about where do we want to do this, where are we not going to do this? Because we've got a fair amount of experience in getting into things and then finding out, oh, everybody wants one of those. So it's a lot easier for me from a policy perspective to say, here's what we do and why we do it under these conditions.
Can we return to this topic then, maybe in March at one of our meetings?
yeah, I think we can. Will that be sufficient time for?
Well, I don't know what I'll have researched in the meantime, because there's a lot going on. But I know too, we want to talk about, I've still got tickler items for interest in discussing, well, what do we do with calls for traffic? And what do we do with calls for traffic control? So we have some policy documents, but if they should be amended or expanded, that would be good to know.
Okay, so let's revisit in March, I think, and
Question.
yes,
You had mentioned like, I understand, like maybe we are wanting this for our intersection and then maybe there's another school in Middleton that wants it for their intersection, or is that what you're saying, just to kind of get the standards?
For instance, if we decided, oh, let's paint these crosswalks fluorescent yellow green, right? I'm pretty sure what happens next is I'll get a lot of phone calls that say, I need my crosswalk to be painted fluorescent yellow green. And I won't have any idea how to evaluate which are priorities, which aren't, which are on school routes. And I need that sort of guidance because everything that takes time or money has to get accounted for.
I think we can present this as maybe if we did go the paint option as a pilot of trying something new in Middleton. And that way people who are interested will know they might not be able to get it right away. We need to get some, whatever kind of evaluation done to see what was the benefit, what was the cost. So I like the
How would you
idea.
measure that, Lisa?
I don't know, but I mean,
You
it's.
paint it
it's-
yellow and for the next 5 years, there's no more incidents. And then all of a sudden there is. It's really hard to measure.
I know, I agree.
Even the delayed walk is hard to measure. Because I would guarantee you coming off of Frank Lloyd Wright, and turning left on Century when there's that delayed walk entrance. People fear for their life anyway. Yes, they're crossing that crosswalk.
Yeah.
So it's there. But what is the real benefit? And luckily it was hit there that I know of.
Yeah, somebody was-
That was hit there, but that was a speeder. Many other extenuating circumstances.
And I think some treatments have published crash mitigation factors, to say like, oh, like a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, these yellow strobes that we put on certain pedestrian crossings that say, push the button and the lights will start flashing yellow, right? That has a published, based on a study, mitigation of risk factor associated with it. And there are different factors associated with different things. So I don't know what yellow paint is.
Can you get with your staff and come back? More sometime?
We can talk about it some more. Yeah, part of what I deal with, of course, is I'm just very limited in staff time.
Yeah.
And so research is thin. But if we're interested in a very specific thing, that's easier for me to deal with than to say, what should we be doing at intersections? That's a little bit open-ended and really, really hard to get enough time.
I would say initially, if we don't have it there, which we don't, that delayed walk. Where the walk comes on before the light turns green
Yeah,
would be a benefit.
that's in process already. And
Yeah,
that
okay.
would have some factor associated with it.
Okay.
Like it's of benefit to get people out into a crosswalk where
Yeah.
they're busy.
Visible.
I like the idea of a pilot at this intersection because it addresses a community concern immediately.
We also have a population that uses that intersection every single day in the room with us now. So we'd be able to collect data on user experience, provided that the people who use that were willing to participate.
What, I'm sorry. what data?
Just what their experiences prior to and after, because they cross every day, so they will have a pretty clear idea of what their experience is like crossing with whatever alterations we make versus what preceded it.
Very subjective.
It is.
So it's not, there's
but-
no rhyme or reason for their experiences other than they would hopefully see it as better.
But if they see it as worse and we have indications that it's worse, then it's probably worse.
Yeah, true.
And then you might try reaching out to the school board to suggest they need to hire another get a crossing guard back there.
I didn't know that there was a crossing guard at one time and then
I do believe there was,
they went to the buses and now there's no buses. So. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
joining us.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, so we've settled on revisiting this item in March.
Right, yep. And did you want that on the first meeting tentatively of March?
We'll leave it up to you.
Yeah.
More ready, probably.
I almost never feel ready anymore.
Well, I know, I mean, you need a date, so pick a
Yeah.
date, and then at least if there's a deadline, that's how engineers work, they need a deadline. At least
Yeah,
I
then
did.
we'll say as ready as it's gonna be.
Oh, it's gotta be done tomorrow.
Yeah. Better get started.
Okay, so we are now on to the reordered agenda, item number 3, Parmenter Street reconstruction, real estate acquisition update and design preference. Previously, number 2, but we reshuffled the agenda.
Yeah, and I'll just, in terms of a brief introduction, Kevin Ward is on the line here, and so he can answer a lot of the technical design and some of the real estate questions from MSA's perspective. Just to bring you up to speed, we pretty recently heard that negotiations with one more of the property owners are going pretty well. I think to the degree that they've reached verbal agreement on some terms for real estate interest acquisition, if we can massage the design of the roadway in a way that makes their driveway use better. And we can talk about that more as we get back into design issues. But I wanted to float that out there. So I'm reasonably but cautiously optimistic that we can still conclude real estate negotiations for the project as envisioned and supported by the council. But, consistent with the state agreement that we've got for some grant funding. But I'm not so sure whether or not we'll be able to get the project bid and constructed yet this year. Even if we can pull that off, that's going to depend a little bit on close on real estate.
Is that
issues.
the remaining property owner or are there still others?
I don't think, no, it was more like a handful, I would say. Is that about right, Kevin? Without
Yeah,
getting-
my understanding is there's no signed agreements officially yet, but there is a handful that have been kind of, twisting the arms a little bit, or like you said, kind of, we've been going through the design options with them. And so he hasn't pressed on some of the other ones that haven't had that, just in case, there wasn't a need to obviously get those if we couldn't get these others as well. So he hasn't pressed, but he doesn't see issues with all of them by any stretch.
Like that it's doable, we think.
Yep, we think the hardest one, like you said, Sean, or at least what we thought was the hardest one, we had some very good progress with whatever that was 2 weeks ago. That he kind of verbally agreed to things, like you said, with some massages, if everybody's okay with some of those, so.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that. But so for now, Plan A is still in process. This agenda item really was more about, well, what's our Plan B if Plan A just becomes a washout? And for whatever reason, we're just not able to acquire the property interest that we would need to get everything that we're looking for. And part of that certainly is then we'd have to get into redesign of the project, change the element, change the scope. And then we'd also have to get a hold of WISDOT to say, are you okay with that? And if so, can we get a new agreement from you for funding levels? So that would be kind of the beginning of Plan B if we just pull the plug on Plan A. I can report back to the Pedestrian Bicycle Transit Committee talked about this issue last Thursday. And my understanding, I haven't seen the minutes yet, but I talked to Marco with some, and our common understanding, I think, was that if we could retain the bike path, the multi-use path along the east side of the road, sidewalk on the west side of the road, both of the bike lanes, that the recommendation would be to be willing to either narrow or give up entirely the median space. Even that would only trim out 22 feet of the 90 feet, so it still wouldn't fit in something smaller than 70 feet, but that might allow us some flexibility in design at certain spots. And I think that probably is a good front runner as a Plan B kind of option if we can't make Plan A work. So I wanted to let you know that. And also the Plan Commission is going to talk about this tomorrow night. So their recommendation for what do we do if this doesn't work? Is there anything big other than that, Kevin, from your memo or anything as big issues that you think I'm missing here? here in this summer?
No, I can't think of anything big. I mean, I think those are the things we had talked about, Sean, just as to, like you said, whether we skip pieces, whether that would make sense, and obviously from the bike ped committee, it sounds like that wasn't obviously a preferred option necessarily. But yeah, I think, since this, like I said, about the time that we wrote this memo was about the time that we got the good news, would knock on wood, good news from the one property owner. So we're hopeful that everything is going to move forward, but it's kind of the what if. And I guess the only caveat I'd say is obviously we're getting late this spring to get this done this year and done and bid. So, which we are still, if we did this and we allowed ourselves more time for negotiating with these property owners and everybody was okay, it can still be done next year and still meet the DOT grant guidelines. It just needs to be concluded by, you can help me, it's like May of 26, I believe, or something. So if it's done in 2025, we still fall within the grant.
Yep, that's sort of our last chance. 25, yeah. And it almost feels like the only chance to get something done this year is to reach speedy conclusion with negotiations for Plan A. Almost everything else pushes it to next year. So that's why we brought it here, is figure out, let's hope we don't need a plan B, but if we do, what would be the city's preference on that?
So that's more just information for us at this point, Sean. We don't need to take any action.
I'm actually looking for advice to the council, a recommendation to the council on, if we have to change the roadway design because we cannot acquire enough real estate to make it happen. What do we do? And so we had some options like, well, let's skip sidewalks or bike path or something in chunks and fill them in later if we can get real estate later, or skip whole blocks because people are going to have to cross the road just to get anywhere, or just do a simple resurfacing project and don't try to do any sort of improvements per se, just rebuild what's there because the pavement's terrible. Option 4 was just try to redesign it with bike and ped facilities as envisioned, but skipping the median, which then number 1 precludes the opportunity later if we wanted extra lane capacity to get that extra lane, because we couldn't take out the median to add 2 more lanes. But we also would lose all of the median crossovers. So people trying to duck out of a travel lane to turn left into a driveway or come out of a driveway sort of don't have any of that safe place to sit. Pedestrians crossing the roadway don't get a median out.
So let me understand, regardless of what we do, if we can't do option A, we still have to move forward with something to resurface it because it is in bad shape.
Right.
So we could just sit and resurface it and kick the can down for another 4 or 5 years.
And that's kind of what option 3 was about.
Yeah.
Just resurface it and don't do anything with it.
And now, but plan for it in the future, obviously.
What we don't have available in the future is the opportunity to use TIF as funding mechanism. So it's in capital budget and we don't get the state grant funding.
But if we went ahead with any of the other options other than A, which is going to get the land, we're doing it 3/4 of the way. We're giving up a lot.
Or there's trade-offs with all the other options.
Option A is the best option, obviously.
Well, that's the one the council endorsed.
Yeah.
So we've been following that because it gives us 2 lanes now with the potential for 2 lanes later if they turn out to be needed.
Can you remind me if that was done under the suggestion of a traffic analysis or if that was just a plan that?
I don't remember. It's
Okay.
been a long time.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if that, and if there was under a traffic analysis, what was the state of development along Parmenter at that time? Did that include the Bell Farm development?
That should have included Bruce Company, Bell Farm, Red Tail Ridge, we knew was gonna happen.
Okay, so it's been that
Misty
recent. enough.
Valley's already in there.
Yeah, all those have been,
Yeah, we knew that stuff
Okay.
for a while.
I remember right too, it was a long time ago that this was recommended that it be done now. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It came out of the woodwork 2 years ago. It was 4 or 5 or even 6.
No, it's been in process quite a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on the Ped Bike and Transit Committee, for the Plan Commission. I'm sorry Carrie's not here because she represents this committee on that. And she was in on the discussion last week too, and we rejected all the options except for 4 and 5. And we had quite a long discussion about options for putting, Parmenter on a road diet. Apparently the number of cars or trips on the road today is well below what is,
Oh, yeah.
4,800, right?
yeah, 4,800, and it's, I forget what the federal trigger is for, or maximum for a road diet, but it was something like
20, yeah, 20,000.
So we were very comfortable losing the median, and not at all comfortable losing sidewalks or bike paths or bike lanes. And then deferring the project to 2025 seemed like something that would be necessary to support a redesign. So.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see 5 as mutually exclusive to any of these except 6, which is terminate the project.
Yeah, 5 works in conjunction with almost everything except speedy conclusion to real estate negotiations.
Yeah.
So,
maybe 5 would be the answer, especially if like Pet is on board with that. 5.
We,
and
4 was our, 4 and 5 together, except get rid of the part about, to give property owners additional time for, negotiations. The deferring until next year was really just if the schedule cannot be met for this year. Doesn't matter what the reason is, we're comfortable with that.
yeah, well, and right, so we're still pursuing Plan A,
Right.
which may or may not work this year, but it may push to 2025. And then Plan B would be basically number 4 and number 5 is let's redesign the road. I think we would still need to acquire some real estate, even without a median, we're still gonna need more than we've got in some spots. Then we would have more time for that too.
It might be easier to get.
Yeah.
Exactly, it would have less impact to some of the properties.
So you need a motion from us then?
Yeah, if you would give some guidance to the committee, and I'd be fine if Plan B becomes 4 and 5.
Yeah, I would move that Plan B become 4 and 5.
Because we're gonna lose something, right?
Yeah.
And if we
Yeah.
lose these median crossovers, it's maybe the lightest end of things to lose.
So how much time do we want to give Plan A before we bail?
That's what I was wondering. It seems like we have to have a, we have to
And that
have a
should be in the
drop dead
motion.
date for.
That's a fair question too. Did Peter ever give you a sense, Kevin, for if he thinks we can reach conclusion about how long we would know that?
No, not exactly. I can find that out. I guess I feel like we're not in a huge time crunch as far as if we're, going to do 4 and 5 and do a redesign. I mean, I think we've got time to do that and get it out obviously to bid, but I can get some answers for that. I mean, Sean, we were originally hoping it was going to be by the end of last year, and then it got pushed to February and everything. So it's just without the being able to use the condemnation for any of this, it basically, we're just kind of been doing a lot of back and forth with things. So he didn't, but I can find that out and pass that on to Sean, and he can give an update or something on that.
Okay, yeah, it'd be good to know if,
Yep.
within a few months, we just want to pull the trigger and say, this isn't.
So give it maybe 4 months, 5 months before we bail on option A.
So that gets us to summer.
So maybe, do you want to do first meeting or last meeting of the second quarter then?
Let me ask this in between here, Kevin. Do you have a sense, like,
That seems like a.
if the city says, you know what, let's redesign this thing for Plan B, how much redesign time does it take for you to get that put together by, say, November, right?
That's where I guess I was kind of thinking that I can't imagine that would take much more than, we've kind of got a profile set and all that kind of stuff. So I can't imagine that would take much more than maybe a couple months,
Right.
or something. So I was kind of thinking, at that time, that would give us, I don't know, say August, September, or something like that. If you had to do a redesign, and then, you'd still be able to get it out to bid for early next year and stuff. So that was just kind of my thought on it. So, I mean, I think through the summer, obviously, I think Peter feels a lot better about it now, after that with the one property owner and stuff. But until you get the signed documents, you just never know, I guess. I know there's still some back and forth. He said that, with easements and different things like that. So, but I don't remember him giving me a timeline necessarily. But I will try to find one out. But I think if you set something for the summer, I think we would, the 3 to 4 months or something like that. I mean, it definitely seems like a long time, but then again, we have been working on this 9 months basically since we approved preliminary plans. So, and nothing is signed yet either. So it's a long process.
So let's give
July
it to
1.
till August. Let's give it to August 1st. Before we make the final decision, but recommend that we go forward with
I would
it.
think too, if we don't know by July, we know.
July 1st, July 1st, although let's look at the Century Avenue bike path on the east side where it's still not right away.
Yeah. That's got its own. If one person.
So let's-
the whole thing's.
Let's move with July, make the final decision for option A on or about July 1st. And then proceed, if not approved by then, proceed with 4 and 5. That's our recommendation to Planning Commission. At that point, Council?
Yeah.
And
No,
council.
I'll
And
take
so
it to
we'll
the
still
planning
hear
commission.
from Plan Commission
Yeah,
tomorrow then.
Okay,
I'll be there. I'll second that motion.
All right, we have
did I
a,
word that okay, Lisa? And he'll get it right, I know.
we have a motion to pursue Plan A until July 1st, at which point we pursue Plan B, which is a combination of option 4 and 5, deferring the project to 2025
If necessary.
if necessary, and redesign as spelled out in option number 4.
The only thing I hear in that is that I think it's already deferred to 2025 regardless. Of
Yeah,
Well, by then we'll be long.
Oh, I
past-
know, anyway.
Yeah.
As of now. So the project has been deferred to 2025 because
Yes.
of real estate issues.
Okay, yeah,
So with option 4 and a design amendment and WSDOT concurrence.
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
4 and 5. Combination of 4 and 5.
Well, 5
Yeah.
will already have happened, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll write it in.
and motion is from Don, seconded by Lisa. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And now we are on to Parmenter Street Reconstruction Amendment number 3 to agreement with MSA for design and real estate services for Parmenter Street reconstruction.
Right. Well, and as you've heard, this took a lot longer than expected and we're not done yet.
Yeah, I move we recommend to council and finance 75,000.
All right, second that. Can I ask a question? Does this need to go through city attorney review and approval, or has it already?
We can add that in. It's a very standard format for us, so that's fine.
Attorney approval is.
Okay, I'll second that.
Great, we have a motion to adopt the pending city attorney review and approval, moved by Don, seconded by Lisa. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion carries.
I'll add on there, just because I had already put it into the agenda comments, but just as a reminder here at the meeting too. Because of this extra cost now, because of scope change, we're gonna need to backfill some money later on property acquisition. We had a pot of money allocated for both design and property purchases, and we just increased design costs. So we don't have the leeway anymore for the property purchases when we get there. We had a reasonable estimate on what those costs are expected to be if we can conclude them. So I think that ballpark is probably still good. I haven't heard otherwise, Kevin, as you have.
No, I haven't heard anything different, so I think like you said, I think the estimate, I would think it's reasonable by all means.
And so if we don't have to redesign, that'll help, but we just don't know that yet.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
All right.
That dispatches that. Did you have anything else, Kevin? I know you have to run.
No, I just appreciate it and we look forward to, I guess, getting this thing moving for you.
Honestly, someday, man.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Thank you,
Hey,
Kevin.
yeah.
Thank you.
So before we move on to the next agenda item, I would like us to take a 5-minute recess to attend to personal needs since we've been here for an hour.
Sounds good to me.
All right, move seconded recess. We will resume at 7:30.
It'll be crowded and all those guys.
Not heard back. Great.
The time is now 7:30,
Okay.
so we
So we
are,
still have our quorum of 5 members present. 7:30, we're still recording.
all right.
Moving on.
So meeting is now in session. And we are on to Resolution 2024-07, Public Access and Public Water, Sewer, Sanitary Sewer, and Storm Sewer Easements for Bell Farm Plat PC 2583.
Yeah, so one of the contingencies of prior approvals for Bell Farm is that these public improvements that are outside the plat boundary would be covered by easements. These are those easements. So staff is recommending that that the committee recommend approval to the common council of the resolution. So these can get recorded.
And these have been through the city attorney for,
Correct. He wrote
Yes.
the resolution.
okay, great.
I will so move.
Second. We have a motion to approve the resolution as written from Don, seconded by Charles. All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next, resolution 2024-08, sanitary sewer and water main license agreement, Lake Ridge Bank, 8301 University Avenue.
Right, so there have been a couple changes at this property, and it's just at the southwest corner of University Avenue, Highway 14, and Deming Way, where the old State Bank of Cross Plains was, but is now Lake Ridge Bank. And they've got a couple of site features that are within the bounds of a water and sewer easement. They're not in conflict with the water and sewer pipes, but if ever we would have to dig down to them, we would be in their detention pond, a bit of a retaining wall, maybe some trees. And this license agreement just sets up the terms of understanding that, yeah, it's on their property, but it's in our easement. So if ever there's a conflict and we have to dig a trench, they understand and they'll rebuild those.
Isn't that a given? It's in the easement?
Yeah, we like to write these things down. You'd be surprised how often
Make it
people have said,
special and.
I didn't know that.
Hmm.
So it's mostly writing it down to say, well, you can't say you didn't know.
Okay,
And this is going back to cover it because it exists already. It's just not in writing.
And did the latest improvements get done, Bruce, or just the older improvements?
This is for the expansion of some parking that we're gonna be, that Lake Ridge Bank is gonna be doing, this upcoming summer. So we,
Oh, so
and in
that-
order to accommodate those additional stalls, we had to expand the bioretention basin that falls within this easement. So we figured this would be the right time to update this license agreement.
And it's an underground retention basin. Sorry.
No,
No, it's
so
it's at grade, it's a bioretention, so it's a smaller,
kind of
shallow.
like northeast corner, right along the highway.
Oh, okay.
Looks sort of like a ditch, probably.
Oh, I
They're
see.
drawing.
Okay.
And this resolution also was prepared by the city attorney.
Well, I guess I'll move that we recommend to the common council approval of the resolution.
second,
All right, we have a motion from Lisa, a second from Don to approve, to recommend to the common council approval of the resolution as authored. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Moving on. Thank you for joining us, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce.
All right, thank you, guys.
We have discussion of the recent meeting for chairs and vice chairs. Added to the agenda at the request of Alder Haniro. Lisa, if you'd like to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Charles and Don for being at the meeting. I was there too. I thought it was a good meeting and I encourage others to watch the video because even though the mayor presented it as a meeting for the chairs and the vice chairs of committees, I think it also had some good information for any committee member. One of the actions that I thought we could maybe talk about tonight actually looks like it won't be necessary, and that is the streamlining of the minutes. I noticed our minutes included just the actions taken, like at council meetings, instead of any kind of summary of the discussion. And I think that I hope that will save you some time, Sean. And I think since the meetings are recorded, if anybody has questions about how we came to a decision that's reported in the minutes, we can certainly find it in the video. One thing I met with Brian Gatto today, we have a quarterly meeting. One thing I suggested to him as an improvement to all the minutes would be to include a link to the video at the beginning of the minutes to let people know where to find it. It would be great if you could put it in the agenda with a on-base agenda, but there isn't a field for that yet. Maybe in a future version of that software, they'll have one. But I think since minutes are always prepared, we always know the link to the video. That would be good to put there for people.
Yeah, here's one issue with that idea, and it's a good idea that I had not thought of, but I usually write the minutes
Before.
within a few days, and then like the links for January meetings are still not on the website.
Yeah.
I send them out, but that's somebody else's gig then to actually get them on the website, and I don't get to control that. So
Yeah.
What I would be hesitant of is
Until that process is fixed.
going back and fixing the January minutes at this point.
No, don't worry about that. But I think once that problem with the posting, because that was another thing we talked about, is the variety of ways videos get posted or not. So I think Brian is going to be trying to figure out how to clean up that process.
Okay.
There is one thing I want to flag about this. I think we do need to refer this to L&O if we're going to do it, because the retention schedule in Chapter 2, Section 7E of Middleton City Code appears to cover video recordings of meetings, and it says any tape recordings of governmental meetings of the city may be destroyed, erased, or reused no sooner than 90 days after the minutes of the meeting have been approved and published, if the purpose of the recording was to make minutes of the meeting. So I think that we may just want to make sure that if we're including the recording as a supplement, that we spell it out in the code. So I would want us to refer that to L&O to just reconcile the retention schedule.
That sounds like really old language, like when people used to put tape cassette recorders in the
Mhm.
middle of the table.
Oh, it was absolutely written in the 80s.
Oh, like we're using a tape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This was absolutely written in the 80s. I have no doubt. Perhaps sooner.
And back then they thought it was a good idea.
They needed the tapes.
Yeah, yeah.
These things aren't free, man.
Neither is data storage. So I don't know what the optimal solution here is. I do want to flag that I think we should send this to L&O though for making sure that the retention schedules line up.
Well, maybe just as something that's a bit more generic and yet still offers people a meaningful link is if I'll pick on Public Works because we're sitting here. if in the Public Works minutes, they include a link to the Public Works playlist, and then people can choose whatever date they want from there, but if we could at least get them there.
I like that idea.
And if they're available, because
Right,
we
and
got
if-
stuff from like 2021 anyhow. So. And at least they wouldn't have to go digging for it. Plus, I wouldn't have to go back and re-edit minutes that have been published.
Yeah, I like that idea, because the video will eventually make it to the playlist.
Yeah, I just think long-term, we should probably make sure, but yeah, I like this. I like the playlist. So we have,
So that was one thing. Was there more? I felt like that was bullet number one.
yeah, I also appreciated the effort that everyone went to put that meeting together. I just want to suggest more broadly that we should take into account how readable presentations are when we're putting them up on a projector. It's not as much of a problem in this room, but there were a number of slides where we used some combination of colors that didn't parse well as the background and the text, and
Font size too.
both Don and I encountered difficulty actually reading the presentation as it was being given from where we were sitting.
I'll
So
get that more in the council chambers.
yeah,
And this was
There's three rows back and you're like, look,
Yeah,
here's the whole spreadsheet, but you can't read any of it.
Well, that's just a common thing that people do and never should. I know you can't read the slide, but.
yeah.
yeah.
Never a good plan. One thing I noted at the committee of the whole meeting, Kurt Paulson was giving a presentation and the video of the not speaker at the time was Bill Burns's audio, but that was obliterating some of Kurt Paulson's slides where so you couldn't see like what was the heading for that particular column. So, just those, I mean, that's nothing we can fix here. I
Yeah.
think your video looks like it'll be fine, maybe. I don't know.
Well, the only part that people will actually see is what's inside this green box.
Okay.
Only we can see stuff outside the green box.
So let's hope your image right now is not covering up any of that green box.
And that's actually recorded separately. I just kind of floated up in the corner to get it out of our way, but on the processing, it should set it off on the right-hand side. Like it's not part of it.
The reason I brought it up wasn't just font size, but specifically
Colors.
making sure
Colors, yeah.
that the color choices we employ are ones that are accessible to the most people who might be viewing. So no yellow on white, for instance. That kind of thing. So. All right, do we have any further discussion on this topic?
Only that the video is available on the Middleton YouTube
Yes,
live
under live.
tab.
Okay. So discussion on this has concluded. On discussion on city committee streamlining and consolidation. Don, this was a request of
Yeah,
yours.
I'm just curious, is this, as far as you know, Sean, is this the only two committees that are looking at combining at this point? Swab and,
There was some talk at the committee of the whole of other potential consolidations. But there were some interesting questions raised at the committee of the whole too, that I put in here as bullet points.
Okay.
And our city administrator, Brian Gatto, had offered to put together committee feedback on these questions so that he could get it back to the committee of the whole, the council members.
I don't know, but I think Wednesday after next, we're meeting again, Swab and the Waste or WRMC committee. The only concern I had is that if they're going to do this, they really got to look at financing of those two committees. Because that was the whole issue for the last several years, as long as I've been on the committee, it's who pays for what.
Yeah.
It's a little less now, since
Well-
one of the members is no longer on the committee, but it still is there. I mean, these guys, you're supposed to get your money from the annual budget and you get it from the rates. And the part in between was the problem. Well, who pays for engineering? And I think the committee in general felt, SWUB felt that, hey, if it's being designed for SWUB, it comes out of the SWUB money. And the argument was, well, no, it shouldn't.
I think the distinction has become more of, is it rehabilitation of an existing feature, or is it new or a betterment?
Even that, it was the engineering. If you need engineering to, and a document to come up with just dredging of a stormwater detention facility.
Sure.
And well, no, a SWUB can't pay for that. That's gonna come out of the general fund. Well, no, it isn't, because it's a SWUB project.
And I thought, I mean, I'm secondhand, right? But I thought from discussions with Eric that the distinction was gonna be whether
It's-
this is engineering or construction as much as whether this is rehabilitation or new, I'll call it, right? And everything goes with that.
Last couple of years, it's gotten much better, and there's never been an issue raised.
Yeah.
Contention every time a project came.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't do it this way. So we can't exist. So
We're growing. I'd say we're making progress.
Yep. But I think it's a good idea. I just, again, as a volunteer, you always look at your volunteer time.
Mhm.
Lisa just lives here in the city. And while you get paid for it, I don't think she does.
Yeah.
Very little.
Working for free.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Anyway,
Minimum wage.
Your comments about, I'm looking at Eric's memo, and he indicates SWUB has been mired in discussions about funding eligibility since I came to the city. So some projects and funding requests, which would logically be brought before SWUB, have instead been brought before WRMC. And, yeah, so I think, and I think once the stormwater utility rate study is done and the fee is adjusted, if the voters allow us to do that this fall, I think some of these issues will go away or be resolved.
well, you hope so,
Yeah.
but it's still,
Yeah.
it's SWUB money versus the
Right.
water resources money. But yeah, it'll be fun to follow.
Yeah, and there are, to answer your first question, there are other, I mean, the whole reason to consolidate the committees. Or the impetus for this is the strategic plan. That was one of the things the consultant noted. Was that there are some efficiencies to be gained.
Yeah, we have
by-
too many committees.
Exactly. And so this one is on deck. Finance and personnel is a possibility, but that only affects alders. And then the other one that I think has a pretty good chance of being merged would be parks and conservancy lands, because they're all under one department. Parks,
Okay.
Recreation, Forestry, Conservancy Lands is all one department, but they have two committees. And have you met at all? You're our representative right now. on
I-
Conservancy Lands.
I can't call a recent one.
Yeah.
Um,
I really like the proposal that came from SWUB and WRMC. The only thing I would change is I would not have it be an 8-person committee. One, I mean, each committee right now has 7 members. That That's a good number
Yeah.
because if you have 8, you have to have a quorum of 5. If you have 7, it's can have 4 people at a meeting and still go forward. There's the issue of breaking a tie. And then I think the reason for adding the 8th person was to have a representative of Conservancy Lands. But there's a good chance that that will be,
Well, it could be me,
it could be,
because I'm on SWEB, but not on water resources.
okay,
And I'm the representative of Public Works.
right.
So it might have been just me. I don't know.
No, well,
If they
I thought.
want me to step down, I'll volunteer.
Recommendation came specifically to add, because Eric's suggestion was to have 3 from WRMC, 1 from Public Works, 1 from Finance, and 1 from, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm reading what it currently is. Anyway, the recommendation from Eric was to just have the 7 members, and the 8th one was added, and I think it was Conservancy of Lands.
Okay. Okay. All right,
Well, and that's actually the first question that Brian Gatto passed along as coming from the committee of the whole is, are the liaison positions that we have, and we have 3 of them that get appointed to other committees, useful? If they are useful, is there any way to improve the,
don't you, as a staff, get together?
we do that pretty frequently.
Yeah, I was
Enough out of
going to
it.
say.
Yeah, we pretty routinely share notes, talk to each other, and try to figure out what's going on or how we interface.
Yeah, I mean, the discussion tonight that you had with Opitz about Parmenter is just that you checked in, what you guys, what did Ped Bike, you knew what Ped Bike Transit had already talked about before, you know?
Well, and I went to that part of the committee meeting too, just
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
The only,
pick up what I could firsthand.
one of the reasons that it came up is that I know during the, what is it? Lake Street. The one that comes out of Starbucks, crosses the road and goes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lake Street.
Where all of a sudden we had decided in this committee, well, let's put a stormwater treatment facility at the end of the road. And so when I brought that up to Eric at the SWAB meeting, I said, hey, have they talked to you about that? No. I said, well, maybe that's what I'm for. Because it's going to require maintenance. So those things aren't cheap and they're not maintenance free.
Well, it depends what we do. I don't know that.
Yeah, I know. I know it wasn't decided totally, but I knew it was discussed
Sure.
as a means of not just taking the wastewater or the stormwater, right? Just looks like wastewater, and just throwing it out into the lake.
Which is what's happening right now. So anything different than that's better.
We have an improvement. So, yeah, anyway, that
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've all benefited from having Carrie and Lisa talk about Ped Bike Transit in committee when we're discussing items that have either come to us from them or which are things we know they'll have specific concerns, and then it's useful for our committee if we send something over to have a person who was on the committee when it was decided to speak in a position where they can actually vote on it and advocate for it in ways that Sean as city staff can't necessarily do.
sure. Sure.
Hey, I have a question about Public Works and Planning Commission. The 2 years that I've been on Public Works, the other alder that has sat on it with me has also been on the Planning Commission. How common is that?
To be on Public Works and the Plan Commission? I never tried tracking that. I don't
I
know.
think there's some benefit in it. I know it's a heavy lift because the Planning Commission meets twice a month, the Public Works Committee, and then if you're on council, it's.
Wasn't it Susan?
I don't think so.
The one committee she wasn't on?
I think she was.
Well, you raised an interesting point, because one of the things I was thinking, and I'm sorry, again, Carrie isn't here, so maybe we can ask her about this in the future, but like, so. As a council member, I expect to have to go to a lot of meetings every month. And I wonder if it would be easier for the volunteers, and I say this as someone who's on WRMC and for my first term, or first year, and when it came time to recruit the volunteer to go to the CLC, everybody's like, looking around, nobody wanted to be tapped for that, yeah. And it was really hard. The only way we got a volunteer was to say you do it for 6 months and then someone else will do it for 6 months. And so I was thinking it might be possible to do something like if Carrie thinks it is a heavy lift to go to 2 meetings, Public Works, and then also pick up another group. What about having one of the alders who serves on Public Works also be appointed to be Public Works' liaison to Ped Bike and Transit, for example? So that way
Yeah.
it's less of a burden for our volunteers. Like SWAB might be different.
Well, yeah, we don't have an alder at all.
You do.
We do, sure, we do. Okay, never mind. We can,
Yeah, it's you're supposed to have a rep from finance.
okay. Yeah,
Sean, do you need us to make a recommendation to council about the proposed consolidation of SWAB and WRMC?
I don't think so. I think SWAB or WRMC has.
I think they gotta do
already
it.
Done that.
Yeah, we
actually.
haven't decided much of anything at that other, hey, think about this, guys.
Well, I mean, what he wrote up is pretty,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah.
cohesive and
Yeah.
concise, so,
He
I
did.
mean, it's a good, it's great example of what is helpful.
Yeah, I'm just sure this is, I just worked up a little diagram showing. Assuming parks and conservancy lands consolidate. The number of relationships and liaison relationships between committees drastically simplify. If we consolidate them.
It is white writing on a yellow box. isn't
Sorry.
it?
No, it is.
Yeah.
Yellow box, yeah, it's close. I'm
It's easier
okay.
to read on screen than once I
Yeah.
translate it.
So is what you're saying that the committee liaison, the interrelation of committee members being on several other related committees is of benefit, but it would be better if it were the aldermanic person that's appointed to sort of a cluster of committees.
Sort of for both of those points. In some cases, I don't think a liaison is necessary, and I'll say as a member of the plan commission, I don't think I need to be at every Ped Bike and Transit committee meeting. I find them interesting and engaged in them, but as the plan commission rep, I don't feel like my presence is always needed. So there are some that I think need to be looked at more closely, like if something that comes up before the plan commission really needs to be considered by Ped Bike and Transit, how else can we do it without giving somebody else another meeting to attend every month?
Sure.
And then the second point, it may be better for the volunteers if there are opportunities to appoint the alder to be the liaison. With the mayor taking that into account when she
Signs.
comes up with their assignments.
With any volunteer organization, it's just getting harder and harder and harder to find them. It's damn near impossible. And I don't know why, other than the volunteers that are there keep doing it, thank God. But eventually they get beat to death. Like I am all but done Middleton Hills. I've been there for 10 years. And I've been beat to death and I'm sick of getting beat to death. So anyway,
Yeah.
It's tough.
As far as the committee liaison positions, they're not in the ordinances. They're just sort of suggested by the committees, correct? It was something at one point in time that.
The liaisons are.
They're-
in the
they're all-
order.
Are they in the
Ordinances,
ordinances?
yeah.
Okay.
So we have
They're not-
CLC, and I'm not sure why, because that's not in the ordinance. It just says thou shalt provide one.
Right, they're
Okay.
not described as liaisons.
Oh, okay.
Their
Yeah.
members will be,
Yeah.
constituted, and it'll say one member from Public Works. one member.
Oh, right,
And
okay.
part of what seems frustrating, we
There's
don't
no-
suffer from it here, is that committees that appoint members to other committees, those other committees have to wait a while before they can know who their membership
Yeah.
is. And then they start picking leadership from that. So everything has sort of a domino effect, when the council gets in April and you get your committee assignments in May, then we can start making sub-assignments, in June, and other committees are rolling in like July.
There's no doubt that all needs to be tightened up, and I think it will, but it'll take a couple of years.
There's also no consistency whatsoever for how the various committee representative liaisons, whatever we're calling them. Even in it became relevant for us in last June, but there, like, even the 3 positions that we choose representatives for, there's no consistency for the method of choice.
So that's right.
It's
CLC.
short straw.
But there's like the chair,
That
4
person's
chairs
missing.
designee, there's the vice chair,
Seriously,
election from the
you
membership.
know, who'd like to be this person?
Yeah, it is a little bit goofy.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I mean, I think there's some synergy with Ped Bike Transit. I like Water Resources or SWEB or whatever they end up getting called, because we interface with water quite a lot. I just don't know that we interface with Conservancy Lands a lot.
Or would if they met. Yeah,
Or-
do you know why
or
that,
I
that relationship came about? Why?
I think it's mostly just a staffing thing, is, Kylie is stretched very, very thin.
Oh, no, I'm wondering, where did the,
Oh,
The
how is
idea
there a
of having-
CLC?
no, where did the idea of having Public Works represented on CLC come from?
That I can't.
That's-
we
I think as we were establishing CLC, they said, who do we pull from?
well, I mean, we do use the Conservancy lands for stormwater management. So
So,
it would, I can see how someone at some point, whenever this was decided, said, well, we do use this for stormwater management. Somebody from Public Works or somebody who deals with the water should be on there. And have no more discussion than that. I could completely see that happening.
so possibly eliminate the Conservancy Lands Committee representative or our representative on CLC, even if it merges with Parks.
I don't think I'd go that far. I mean, I do think that we want someone from this committee on there in case that area comes up, but I don't.
But well, and that's the thing, and
But if we already have somebody from SWUB who's appointed from here, then or the merged water utility committee, then I don't see it as
It's not the water utilities, water resources.
water
It has absolutely nothing to do with water utility. They're
No,
talking-
the water utility.
we're the
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I kind of feel like if it's a just in case something comes up situation, that would, in my mind, mean we just need to keep the lines of communication open, and if there's something we want to refer to Conservancy Lands, in this case, we get on the agenda for the next meeting and a representative shows up at that meeting, but not to always be there. I thought Alder Schaefer brought up Parks, the chair of Parks is on the plan commission. He said like, I forget what percentage, so like 80% of what they do is like sign code violations. So they're reviewing changes to signs and like, I don't mind, like participating in the discussion, but what does that have to do with Parks? I was like, you know what, that is a really, really good point.
Yeah.
So there might be other ways to.
Well, I think that there's also, because with development
Yeah,
comes
they
part,
have to
there's
do the
there,
part.
yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, there's definitely a reason for it. It's just maybe they don't need to be at it. Yeah.
Well, and that committee meets, are they scheduled to meet twice a month?
Parks.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
so that means 4 meetings for somebody who might have, John's an alder now, but he wasn't. Don's point about volunteers getting beaten up and.
Yeah,
But that kind of leads into the frequency of meetings,
yeah.
which is the next bullet point. Sorry to chair.
Oh, we-
That was actually exactly where I was.
Yeah, we meet
Make
once a
up,
month,
so.
which isn't
So,
intrusive, and half the time we don't meet then.
yeah. And like Parks doesn't meet, they're supposed to be twice a month, but I don't think they have.
And I think Water Resources meets every month, but SWUB, very seldom, not very seldom, let's say every other.
As needed, right? When you have projects that need attention, an agenda item, yeah.
And we don't always meet, but I think twice a month works pretty well for what we're dealing with.
I think it has to be.
Goodness.
To me, the right
Yeah.
frequency here.
Yeah, we,
Yeah.
like, there are occasional months where once is fine,
Sure.
but if we did that every week, we'd have like at least 2 6-hour meetings a year based on our average meeting length.
It could get really tough, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think you'd be able to find volunteers.
Long enough, we don't need any more.
There you go.
Uh,
I'm not sure what you're gonna put in for meeting notes. We'll leave it.
2 times a month seems good.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then the last question is.
Consolidation with another committee, I don't see it.
No, we,
I'm not sure either who would
yeah,
join us. And we can't dissolve.
so no future consolidation, no dissolution. There we go.
Right, no. All right.
All right.
Making some progress.
I would ask that we defer consideration of, oh, sorry, Kendra.
No, go ahead and finish.
I was
Saying,
going to ask that we defer consideration of item number 8 until Carrie is here. Because she requested this. She is also our liaison for Ped Bike Transit. And we've been unable to reach her. She RSVP'd for the meeting, so I'm just going to assume that something urgent has come up in her life.
she said, I just got a message 7 minutes ago. She's sick. She emailed you before the meeting, but it looks
Oh.
like you are.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's me.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Missed it. I would like to just talk about it briefly. I know the intersection that she's speaking of, and it actually kind of goes hand in hand with the discussion that we had earlier about Century Avenue at Park Street. And it
Yeah.
kind of dovetails into what I believe was your suggestion for the Park Lawn Park Street, because that's all one corridor.
yeah, it is all one course.
To the east of Cromrie there. And I believe what Carrie had suggested, not, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but if I remember correctly, when she mentioned it, it was a request or a concern about the crosswalk, which is not at a stop sign. It is a
Right.
it is a T intersection at Brookdale and Park Street. Basically right along the eastern side of the field at Cromrie, the football field on Cromrie. There's no flashers there. And as was mentioned this evening with the lack of busing for the middle school now, and actually they just recently changed the traffic pattern for pickup after school at Cromrie. They don't allow parents to drive into the pickup circle, which they used to because kids were getting hit trying to get on their buses. So it's Cromrie is kind of a mess.
By an audience that should know better.
So my child, this is a tangent, but my child requests to go to school half an hour early every day, so she doesn't have to cross at Park Street. At Park Street and Donna Drive. It scares her, because I don't like to go into there. So if we're there past 8 AM, I don't go into it. I pull to the east on Donna Drive. But she's scared to cross. So that there's definite issues in that corridor. I think what Carrie was suggesting is to get some flashers at that crosswalk at,
Like an RRFB flasher.
yeah.
I have a question. 2 years ago, didn't we want to put sidewalks on Brookdale? And the neighborhood
was in that
association came in and petitioned us that we don't want sidewalks on both sides of the street. Please don't put them in. Nobody ever crosses here anyway,
Well, walks through those streets.
or walks through those streets.
Yes.
I mean, that was their whole argument for that intersection. Nobody uses it, and no, we don't want sidewalks. that was
Well, we
it.
know
And that
people
might have been
want
several years ago.
No,
when-
two.
Just 2, okay.
This-
I didn't realize that was so,
That was just recently.
Sidewalks now.
on the south side they do, they don't on the
Okay.
north.
You only have it on one side. And we wanted, because of city guidance, we wanted them on both sides, and we argued that and it was in a public. hearing.
Yes.
I don't even think they have them on the south side.
Yeah, now that I'm looking.
Yeah,
at
it's
it,
right there.
I know,
just on here.
but
That was.
the
Google Street
argument
View
was
October
we
21,
don't use that.
but I
crossing.
Yeah, although if someone's literally crossing the street to get to a northbound vehicle that's pulled over waiting for a kid,
Yeah, yeah.
they're still gonna use the crosswalk,
Yeah.
whether there's a sidewalk on Brookdale or.
And parents park on Brookdale to pick up their children.
Yeah,
And so their children are crossing.
You don't need a sidewalk, nobody crosses.
My only concern about the flashers instead of a crossing guard is high school students. I feel like high school students are gonna be heading down the hill to get to the high school and aren't going to be moved by flashers.
Well, there's flashers just down below at the crossing at the.
Yeah.
At the Pheasant Branch.
and
Yeah.
those flashers are incredibly useful to me as a driver.
Mhm.
Because I, especially at around dusk, I don't always see people if they're dressed dark and they're just coming out. They push the flasher goes on, driver sees the flasher. You can't plan for all high school stupidity, but we can help
And
drivers.
those flashes are automatic. As soon
Yeah.
as you pass the sensor, they go.
To be
Got those
fair,
before sight.
as I've
Yeah.
been monitoring intersections, what strikes me as bad driver behavior is not in any way isolated or even preferential to high school.
That is very fair. That is very fair.
That is true. And I should state that I'm not basing my opinion on my own high school driver. Years I said something about high school drivers, but.
Well, back then, high school drivers were bad. I think they've grown
Well,
and
no,
they're
I've
still
got one right
bad.
now.
Yeah.
I got one right now.
And I have one coming out, like, yeah.
So,
It's
but
scary.
we do have money in the budget for another
But just
flashing
one.
beacon.
Right.
Well, yeah, maybe it's time we
Yes.
start adding 2 a year.
It-
Because it seems, I mean, where are you gonna have a lot of people walking? The schools, so the schools really need to have,
When you say just one, you mean
we
one
budgeted for
crosswalk,
one rectangular rapid flashing beacon.
one set of beacons for
Right.
one crosswalk.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
one set.
And we're talking here about one crosswalk.
Yeah,
Right. So
But
and
that
I-
means the one that we have money for.
is this the most important intersection then or crosswalk
I think that.
from the whole city?
and that becomes the
I
metric,
mean,
by which, how do we decide that?
yeah, nobody's requested one. I suppose that carries
Well,
priority.
I
but-
think council left it to Ped Bike and Transit to identify or recommend options.
Okay.
So, yeah, Okay.
For that, but perhaps.
It was either left to Ped Bike and Transit or council members were gonna talk about. If all 8 of us
good for that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
come with, because I know in District 6, it's the Gaylord Nelson intersection with Pheasant Branch Road,
Conservancy there,
Yeah.
parking lot.
yeah, well, it's like at the top of the
Top of
hill.
the hill.
Yeah.
So if you have a unruly
Bad enough
dog.
driving through that intersection coming off of Gaylord Nelson and going on Pheasant Branch.
So.
Anyway, I think if we only have budgeted for one, we've got to consider all comers, so to speak.
Yeah.
And see which one carries the most weight.
And-
And with this intersection, it's not that far from down the drive where there's a stop sign. Or the Conservancy where the flashers are. So you're putting it stop, stop, stop. Potentially. By putting flashers,
Caution.
caution,
Yeah.
stop. Well,
Yield.
they don't stop down a drive. But
What? Jeez. Who are these people?
Actually, I did see a city vehicle make a left turn off of Donna onto Park Street without coming to a complete stop.
Did you have top markings on the side?
yeah,
No, it didn't, although I have heard about the violation of the no left turn onto Century from Old Creek Road by one of Middleton's finest.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I guess what I would suggest is that we figure out, do we refer these kind of requests to Park Bed Transit for a recommendation about intersections?
I would say, yeah.
What metric do we use to do that?
Mhm.
And this also dovetails in, again, I don't want to step on what you want to talk about with
Yeah.
Park Street and everything, but the traffic calming
Yeah.
discussion, and how do we, when we start bringing these forward, because I know what's one of the first things that I talked with Sean about when I got on council is like, how do we make these happen? And it was like, well, there's this, you
We
know,
have the policies.
right, they have the policies in place, but the fact is that they're so cumbersome and they take so long that everybody gets really defeated and stops being
Mhm.
interested in pursuing it. And so I think we just need to audit that and figure out.
I would say we take this to Bike Ped
Yeah,
for their recommendation.
Yeah, because I mean, just looking at this area, the Donna Drive and Park Street intersection, I've gotten a lot of expressions of concern from parents, wondering why isn't there a crossing guard there? And I know the SROs, school resource officers are there for a different purpose. But they also are.
they also are
can
police officers.
control traffic, yeah. And I wonder if during that, again, the morning and afternoon commute, if there might be an opportunity. I don't know what their daily schedule looks like.
I would highly recommend that we look at crosswalks versus using the SRO.
Yeah,
Because I will guarantee those SRRs are doing different things at release time.
could maybe refer that to public safety way, and they'll have a pretty good idea of what the is, and if it's not a good utilization of the police officer, then they'll say that, and then it's
Well, and I would recommend that maybe we also, having heard from the parents that we heard tonight and this conversation that we're having here, have a further conversation with the school district about transportation issues. And I don't know if, again, that needs to come from Pike Bed Transit.
I just say PBT.
The PBT. But it definitely feels like there's some holes in this, that it's not our responsibility as a city to make up for the transportation issues the school district is having. But if our goal as a city is to make it as pedestrian friendly as possible, then we need to be doing that.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to refer this to PBTC?
Yeah.
Or a motion to?
I'll make that
refer?
motion. I'll make that motion.
yeah. Carrie will get to discuss it there anyway, so I'll second that motion.
And I'll let Carrie know, and I'll apologize to her for having, but I want to move this forward.
Yeah,
Especially given the conversations that we're having tonight about other issues within the school district, within that corridor. And if the minutes can reflect that, I don't remember that the flasher decision was gonna be a PBT, but
I can,
I don't remember either.
I just
wrote
know
it
that I knew-
PBT and-
yeah, I knew that we had it flagged in the budget.
documented somewhere, I'll
Okay.
find it,
Okay,
yeah.
and that should be reflected, because that would be nice to know, to let them know that they have that money available for.
For a patient.
Yeah. And then when next year's budget comes out, put in two
yeah,
at least. Yeah.
so we have a motion. We have a second.
Did you second that, Charles?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
To refer the flasher and this intersection to Ped Bike and Transit for their recommendation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. The next item on our agenda.
Clarify for me, did the motion include referring the RRFB or just this issue?
This issue,
Yeah.
Okay.
RRFB is school district then.
Well, the RRFB, somebody in the city needs to decide where to put the one we budgeted for. But I look at referring this issue, crosswalk safety on Park Street, and Brookdale Drive, as opening it up to RRFB, school district coordination on safety.
Sure.
So,
Sure, yep. It's pretty wide open.
Okay, we have already dealt with crosswalk safety on Century Avenue at Park Street. We reordered the agenda for the members of the public who were here to share their perspectives. So now we are on to signage speed limit on Park Lawn Place and Park Street between Maywood Ave and Brookdale Drive. I asked that this go on the agenda. I thank you, Sean. This was so on the background for this is on December 31st. I was driving back home from the co-op, and I drove past an accident. A driver had lost control of his car on the road, and you know those concrete and stone facade barriers at the entrance to the conservancy at that intersection. You may have noticed that one of them is now missing, and that is because his car, the driver's car, collided with that barrier. And Sean, I believe that the report narrative that you obtained was
That was the one over here.
yeah, that one right there. Or excuse me, the one that was a little bit closer, not the two that hold up the sign. They're still intact, but the it was here yeah, that
This?
yeah, that one right there.
Zoom in a bit for the folks watching.
Yeah. So that sheared off the way it was designed to. Great. Driver stopped you know, without going into the ditch. Also great. The the report said U1 was negotiating the curve, NB Park Lawn at Park Lawn Street. U1 was traveling too fast for conditions and lost control of the vehicle, left roadway and struck fixed object along the roadside after losing traction. So what I wanted us to discuss was the signage along this S curve that goes from Maywood to a little bit south of Brookdale where it straightens out again. We have one sign that indicates where the second turn going southbound is right before that curve. And you have to really look for it because it's kind of lost in a sea of other signage as you're driving.
You have a lot of signs in this area, so what
Yeah.
what additional signs
So
are you talking about?
what I think we might benefit from is before we hit the first curve going southbound, or excuse me, going northbound. I'm sorry. Oh,
I'm not on the right side of this curve.
yeah, I'm sorry about that. My brain lost direction. So so
Just passing the tennis.
so we can give drivers a warning, curves ahead.
And it's not even a curve. The sign is like a left turn lane, turn sign.
Yeah,
Past the park, no parking sign, keep going.
keep going like 2 more clicks, maybe.
Right there.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, and the turn is almost a left, the curve is almost a left turn.
So that's sort of a sharp curves.
Yeah.
You turn right before you turn left. So it is more of an S curve.
Yeah, and so what I'm thinking is maybe we want to help drivers a little bit by putting something up that says S, like that's sort of,
Usually an S
Yeah.
curve connotes that we're ending up more or less straight. We're
Oh,
curving
right.
left,
Yeah.
we're curving right,
Right.
and we're gonna end up sort of lined up with what we're doing. That's not what's happening.
yeah.
We're dropping into a right turn, but we're ending up with a left turn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't that downgrade also?
Mhm.
yeah.
That's probably creates a skin condition.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't get a lot of people going off this road. There was something wrong with this guy.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I will tell you during the frozen fog lately,
yeah,
there was some
Mhm.
black ice on that road.
yeah, that road is all black ice.
Yeah, it was, there were a couple mornings driving to school that it was a little. I wasn't thinking of black ice because we didn't have snow, it was fog and there were a couple times I skidded. So
Yeah, so
But
maybe,
you didn't hit that,
I did not hit that,
or the curb.
no. I was able to maintain control.
potentially some signage just indicating under frozen condition, like, icy conditions, slow,
Yeah, those signs tend to be pretty widely ignored though. I mean, because you see year round, right? In the middle of July, they'll say
Yeah.
bridges ice early or something like that, right? And so people are kind of trained like, I can ignore that.
Like the bridge on Whitney Way on University, bridge may be icy in the middle
Yeah.
of July.
Yeah.
Like that, they could flip it up, but they never do.
Yeah, so I hesitate to put up a sign that doesn't have to be there because it'll mean nothing.
Could you just put a slow under that curve?
Oh,
Slow.
yeah,
Yeah.
25, there's nothing wrong with these curves. They're
I know.
fine. They're not 15 curves or something.
That is my car.
It's always, that's yours.
That's my car.
Oh,
It's hilarious.
all right. It's not up on our screen though. so-
No,
Um,
that's too funny.
right, so we normally put advisory plaques up if a
Oh, yellow.
cautious, reasonable, prudent person should go that speed. But driving for conditions is a whole different thing.
That's too funny.
Like a road could be straight and icy and you still have to go slow.
yeah. I just think the conjunction of the curve and
Yeah.
I downgrade,
So what we have has been working and
yeah,
nothing's foolproof. But if there's a suggestion that would make it better, that's
Sean,
fine.
how confident are you that if this road was completely rebuilt with new signage, that the existing signage would be sufficient?
I think we've actually got a fair amount of signage here. In fact, we added an advanced pedestrian crosswalk sign pretty far back just to give drivers a heads up way before they get to this curve, like there might be people up here. And then the
Yeah.
RFB, I think, helped quite a lot besides. So as you're coming around the corner, you're not just looking for people. You can see if the light's flashing or not. And that one's on a microwave sensor instead of a push button. Because we get a lot of path users. And then that way they all get picked up.
But that
So-
turn sign going back
Let me go back.
doesn't look, it looks out of place from where I've seen that type of sign used before.
Mhm.
Into
Yeah.
like a 90, it's not a 90-degree turn short.
That's
Either.
not that one, that's the pedestrian sign. It's this
yeah,
one.
it's that one.
And just being kind of new to the committee, do you have staff that can look at this, compare it to, what did you guys use the MUTCD still for stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, that's the only book.
Right? Yes. We haven't used it in a while, decades, but being new to the committee, is that something the committee can ask a city staff member to?
Well, I'm the city staff member.
Yeah, ask you
One-stop shopping.
to check, to verify that it meets the current edition of that standard? Because I think there's more accurate ways to show it, not necessarily an S curve or this one, but maybe it was something more accurate.
Sure, well, we could put a broader curve sign up if we moved it down a little bit further.
And there should be ones that show two different directions.
I could show two
Like-
directions of what.
Curve to the right and to the left.
Yeah, those are the ones that tend to end up kind of straight. So like the arrow starts here and it ends here, and in between, there's a curve.
I've seen those, but I think there's something else out there. I mean, I don't know.
I can look at that. I don't know. I'm not familiar with a sign that does this. Like there's a gentle curve to the right and then a sharper curve to the left, or a more a curve to the left with more arc to it. That doesn't sort of end up straight. But we can change that sign. It's not a tricky thing. That's something the committee wants. Change that out.
Should look into it and see what's
Yeah.
available and then come back.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready to make a final decision at this time.
Is that kind of what you're asking for?
Yeah.
To check whether or not it's meets like current standards?
Yeah, it meets current standards, and if there are ways that we can just help communicate to drivers on those curves.
And you're doing this for one person. Just to make it clear, you've not seen anyone else at that.
I mean, I've not seen anyone else hit that, but
Or spun out down there.
I haven't driven past it, but I do think it's worth being concerned over just because of how many pedestrians use this area. If there's a way that we can improve communication with the drivers for the curve, then. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of curves like this where there'll be chevron on the opposite side of the street. So when you're driving towards it, you're looking straight on.
yeah,
Some of those, or maybe maybe it was Madison, it might have been joint, on High Point Road. We're right sort of where Madison and Middleton meet, because we had a lot of people driving off the street there.
Is that a higher speed? Usually you see them at higher speed.
It's not very high speed.
High Point is more than this though. It's a little
25
more
to 30.
straight shot.
Yeah, and we put some up on, Pheasant Branch Road, right kind of at the bottom of the hill.
Okay.
We put some there because people kept hitting the guard beam. So where drivers can't figure out how to negotiate those curves, then we try to put those things up, like there's a curve here.
Yeah.
There isn't a slower speed limit on that curve, is there?
no,
Cause I'm looking at 94, heading south towards the airport, cause I used to drive that a lot, and there's like a big curve. But if you're coming north, it's a curve to the left, and they've got not quite a right angle turn. It's like a curve, and it says 50 miles per hour. Is
We
that
do have
too-
some advisory plaques, like on Pheasant Branch Road. I think there's an advisory
Yeah,
plaque there,
20.
like you may need to slow down a bit.
I think it's a 20-mile. I think it says 20 on the curve.
I think that might be right, but here 25 works. So tell people they should be going slower if they won't.
Do you need us to make a motion for this?
Well, I mean, if the direction is to look into it and come back, that's fine. If there's a specific direction, that would be good too.
I think right now we're at the look into it stage. Unless Brandon, do you have a specific direction you want to?
No, I was gonna ask, see if Sean could try to get back to his staff and check into it. That's where I would start too.
All right. And so now we are on to consideration of private stormwater management facilities on public land.
I'll preface this first by noting that my agenda item referenced a council referral to this committee, but it was really the finance committee that referred it to this committee, not the council. And I was working just off of my notes secondarily because the minute hadn't yet been published at the time, and the videotape had not yet been posted. So just trying to get a jump on things and get it back to the finance committee. I took my understanding of what I thought the referral was, council finance committee apart. And I thought what I heard was that this was a general consideration of potential risks of putting private stormwater features on public land. If it's about a specific site, we should, I think, defer this and talk about just one specific site.
Well, as somebody who was in on that discussion and made the referral, it came up in the context of a specific project, but it's really an interpretation of city policy that recognizing that if we make an exception to a city policy for this one development, we're going to get additional inquiries about that. And so I prefer not to think of it in the context of a specific project and get the committee's feedback first about what, or yours too, Sean, what the potential risks are of allowing private stormwater facilities to be constructed on public park.
It would seem simple.
That's what we thought.
Well, so I wrote down some thoughts that the committee might want to consider. You might have your own thoughts, you might have some disagreement with my thoughts, but just in a general sense, the city has tried separating public from private. Just because once you open the door for the most part and start saying, oh yeah, you can have some preferential use of this public land, it gets really hard not to get into gray areas. You know, start saying, well, yes here, but no there, and how do you do that?
Let's say that, for example, the Bruce Company developed.
Just hang on, before we go any further, conversations about specific developments will not be in order because we are discussing this generally and not in relation to any specific
Let's say a
project.
developer wanted to utilize a city park, anywhere in general, is that acceptable? To put
Yeah.
their stormwater treatment facility. And it failed. And destroyed land infrastructure. In theory, they would come in to repair it, one would think. But would that be timely? Would that be acceptable? They would be possibly destroying more property and more city property as they're doing that. It just seems like a bad idea in my mind. I just can't envision why it would be acceptable.
So it's never been accepted in the past?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that the city's direction has been not to do that. There may be specific exceptions or past practice that's contrary to what we do now.
But none that you're aware of offhand.
I don't know. Yeah, I was more focused on trying to figure out. I thought the specific question was about what are some potential downsides to considering opening the policy to say, yeah, let's put private features on public land, private stormwater features on public land.
In the way past, didn't developers build them and then turn them over to the city as a park?
In some cases, yes. Well, not as a,
Hills, for example,
not as a,
which is a specific project, but it happened. They built that stormwater treatment facility and give it to the city.
yeah,
Here
there
we
were
did that.
dedications of regional stormwater management facilities and they were accepted as public improvements.
Correct.
And then that pendulum swung and said, yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah, we can't afford
So
to
all
maintain
the-
those, right?
All the subdivisions now have private stormwater management facilities.
So if anything, we're going away from this.
Yeah, so what I can't remember is, and there may be examples of it, but I can't remember private facilities, on public land. There was public facilities on public land or private facilities on private land. So they either said, let's dedicate this to the public and make it a public regional pond or not, but not, let's put our stuff on your land.
Right.
And I don't know then whether that would be terms of an easement with a private stormwater management system maintenance agreement
Right.
within that easement area.
That was the only thing that I could think that would make it work.
Or whether,
Yeah.
some other mechanism of just having it on.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's what I was wondering, if you could even get a permit and file the maintenance agreement with the county. If it's organized in such a way. You know, you're as a property owner signing a maintenance agreement to maintain something that's not on your property.
It's not yours, that you.
It's not yours.
Yeah.
Maybe you could. I'm dealing with them with my job right now, with the Dane County I was gonna ask them that question, if they have any situations like that. But, when I was looking into it, it seems like there's scenarios where it could work, where it would make sense. But it just seems like such a case by case basis. And especially if it was allowed once before in the past to make a blanket statement about it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, from a policy perspective, whether it never makes sense or always makes sense or sometimes makes sense. And part of it is as you get into subdivisions, oftentimes we ask developers, well, go look for the infiltratable soils first. That's where your infiltration areas are going to be. But then don't dedicate that as parkland, dedicate something else as parkland, because that's your stormwater management area. So in any given development, we normally try to work on that really early on and say, then don't make that the parkland. So a question doesn't come up like, oh, but by the way, can we put our infiltration there on the parkland?
I mean, that becomes, when you talk about redevelopment, that becomes more difficult.
Can be.
Yeah.
Right, depending on how blank a slate you're about to create. Right. It's not unheard of in redevelopment, site redevelopment stuff, right? To say, well, you didn't used to have these stormwater management requirements, and you do now, plan accordingly.
Figure it out.
Because it's a requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still go back to, it's a simple one.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take a real special condition where it wouldn't be acceptable. And some of them put in their own underground stuff, facilities.
Sure. Especially on sites.
Yeah. And because, the one advantage of being able to utilize city property for your stormwater treatment facility is that you can develop more of your land.
Conceivably.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, why would they be doing it? Why would they want it unless it's an infiltration issue?
So in that kind of scenario, if the answer is no, what is the path forward for the property?
On their
Well,
land.
But if there's an else,
Just
just
to be clear, the finance committee specifically didn't ask for a recommendation, so no yes or no. We asked for what Sean has in their feedback on what the risks are. And I guess I would ask, aside from, well, does everybody agree with the ones that Sean has identified? And are there any missing, any other considerations?
I actually just wanted to elaborate. I just wanted to add something to bullet point number 2, which is that city staff has limited resources and this would require future expenditures. And I just wanted to say that it is something that's being considered. I don't see by the finance committee, I don't see how it could be considered without additional funds for public works specifically for this, and how finance chooses to go forward with that. It's up to finance, but wanted to make that explicit that otherwise we would actually just be subsidizing the private developers' use of public lands. It's not even that we'd just be letting them use the public lands for a private purpose. We'd actually be paying them to use the public lands for a private purpose unless there's an additional amount of money that they're required to pay in.
Pretty much what that bullet point says.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering about the maintenance agreement, if it can be written up in such a way that even though it's on public property, they would still do the maintenance on.
And that would depend on the specifics of a proposal. This is very generic. And so even I didn't know, was I envisioning a private facility within an easement covered by a stormwater management system maintenance agreement, or dedication to the public of like, here's a pond, we built it, you take care of it.
Take care, yeah.
So, or for example, if you're required to get these things re-permitted every other year,
Certified, yeah.
certified. And this owner, PC or whatever you want to call him, doesn't do it. Who's responsible?
Yeah, for that.
Because it's your problem.
We do have in the agreement that we can go back after the responsible party, but ultimately, we would be the landowner.
And you can go after. You file a lien on it.
Yeah, that's the part, I don't know, we
Yeah.
have to work through all that.
And-
It's nasty.
Yeah.
Does the city want to be a landlord?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think any conversation I've had with any city staff is there's no interest in that.
I don't think.
In
So,
fact, you could add that as a bullet
Yeah.
point that
Yeah.
the city really doesn't want to be a landlord.
Public Works Committee wants to be a landlord.
right, the public works staff doesn't want to be a landlord, like.
It would be a swab.
Oh, well, you want to be a landlord?
And I have jotted down something Don said that a feature failure could cause damage to city property beyond the easement or feature limits.
Yeah.
So we'd have to deal with that.
Insurance policies, but again, it's a legal document. Legalese.
Yeah, and then you're in a, who knows how long court process, trying to make yourself whole with the issue ongoing. There's also the issue of it fails and they are no longer in business.
Yeah, I was just thinking of my own neighborhood. There's a drainage basin in the neighborhood that the developer put in and gave to the city. And they're out of business. So the city maintains it. It's like the situation we're talking about where it's like, here, you can have this land that our stormwater.
Again, though, Lisa, that was the
That was-
common way of doing
Right,
things
right,
until the city
1999.
said, hey, we don't want this.
Yeah.
And the successors in the science didn't have to assume that responsibility.
I wasn't here.
Well, no, she said that they gave it to the city.
Yeah,
Oh, it was
It
dedicated.
was already
It's
dedicated to
dedicated
the
to the
city,
city.
so it is the city's responsibility.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's just,
But now those maintenance agreements are registered with the county.
Yeah.
So it follows the property, whoever property
Yeah.
ownership transfers, it goes with the property.
Yeah.
So in that case, if they give it to the city, it's on the city, but if they sold it or went bankrupt and sold it, it would be the next owner.
Yeah, I think the thing that would have to be worked out is more like what Don said earlier is, in the event of default of a SWIPSMA, normally our process would come down to eventually the landowner, but it's not us.
it would require a lot of paperwork, and we're trying to conserve paper.
Obviously not. Exhibit B begs to differ. Is there anything up here that just seems not of concern? Or
No.
doesn't
I think those
really
are
matter?
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really helpful.
It's really good, yeah.
It's an attention grabber.
Oh, well, how about that?
The topic, it's an attention grabber.
Yes.
Thought we better show up.
Yeah, did you have anything? to
Yeah.
add?
No, nothing to add.
Okay.
No, but when this popped up on the agenda, we said, doesn't sound like a great plan, but we'll come and see what the details are. It's a thought project, I gather. Is it a first cousin of payments in lieu of? Oh, that hopefully is dead. Hopefully we don't go there. No, don't go there. Yes,
It's nobody's first choice.
yeah, payments in lieu of is just, that seems like a developer scam. Thank you. I get how it.
Right, and not a very big,
Yeah.
that was one of my first questions on WRMC. It's like, really? What do we do with this money?
It's cheap.
So anyway, yeah, we can pass that along, but I know a couple other committees also will want to talk about it, and that's part of.
I'll bet it's on-
Pinned down is, am I on the right track
Assuming
as
it
a
will bring-
general topic of discussion, or was it intended to have been the specific?
Yeah, I'm gonna bet it's gonna be a sports agenda to come.
Just make sure it's generic,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
generic discussion, because it really, I mean, it could apply anywhere. And we just need to,
Mhm.
So what's going back, what feedback is going back to the common council?
That list.
The finance
Finance
committee,
committee.
I'm sorry.
Oh, finance.
Again, yeah, this is just
Yeah.
wrong in that regard. So it would be these bullet points, and then I added a couple others about the feature failure could cause damage to city lands outside an easement area. If there is an easement area, or the feature itself anyway. It could introduce the role of the city functionally serving as a landlord, which is undesirable, and default of the swim zone would still have city land as the underlying property.
and really underscoring the need to budget if we were to do something like this.
Yeah, I think that was.
You've got it in there, but,
Yeah.
well, Kendra and I
Budget
are
work,
half of the
budget.
finance committee, so we can relay this.
I guess my feedback is, and not being very familiar with how things work here in the permits and easements and things, but just on the risks, I think there's ways on it, that it can be done on a case by case basis as part of the permitting process with the right agreements in place. That all of these risks can be overcome, in my opinion. But again, that's just based on my professional experience and lack of experience on this committee and how the city operates, so
And
the full disclosure.
yeah, and having done years ago environmental law that worked with stormwater abatement and worked with wetland association and all that to try to figure out how to make the best use out of these kind of facilities. There are agreements that can do that, but it usually ends up in a landlord leasing. I mean, they're agreements, they're legal agreements that
Yeah.
put people in binding positions of,
Ends up making attorneys a lot.
Be easier to just transfer the ownership of the property, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
and that's why the city now has a pond in Middleton Hills and the pond, that's where those came from. That's exactly the history that has happened before, because those agreements are just like
Yeah.
too cumbersome, and the Wetlands Association would rather have the ownership with the city and the public property, and there's a whole,
Yeah.
there's a reason those
There's
things.
3 ponds in Middleton Hills. City owns.
Three.
It's just fantastic.
So there are ways the agreements could be done. There are definitely ways they could be done. They just end up in a situation that we have to decide if the city wants to be in that situation. And I think a lot of the time our policy has been, no,
Yeah.
we don't want to be in that situation.
I think that's good.
No, I think that,
advice.
no, that's exactly,
To say-
because there are situations where an agreement could work, like, it's definitely an option, but whether or not the city. Right, that's as a city, as a policy, is that what we want?
Well, and that's why the question was specifically about what are the risks? And so I think it acknowledges that this can happen, but if it were to happen, what are we opening ourselves up to?
Yeah.
And I think Sean's list kind of really spells it out.
It does.
Yeah.
Good job.
It's a good list. All right, so have we exhausted discussion with this? Okay. Don't think there's a motion that's needed for that. Sean has the feedback. So we are now on to item number 12. Future meeting agenda items, no discussion or action. Don, do you have any?
No.
Brandon?
I was curious if, I know there's a project to rebuild the Century Avenue Bridge near Branch Street. I'm curious if there's a project to reconstruct Century Avenue, I guess, west of there. And if that, or if there's maybe some kind of, I don't know if we need to put it as an agenda item, but if there's a future meeting about that, I'd be interested in.
And actually, I think the Century Avenue resurfacing project would be a joint project led by the county, funded in part by the city.
Is it included with the bridge project?
No, it's actually programmed for 2026, and the bridge is programmed for 2027. So we should have Century Avenue resurfaced prior to. the project.
So maybe,
It would be better if it's Chicago direction, but.
well, I would suggest doing the Because what you're asking about, I think feeds into the Century Avenue Road Diet study. So maybe could we get?
At
plan-
least potentially.
Potentially, but at a future meeting, could we have planning staff be here to give us an update on?
Mark Opitz has been in conversation with Dane County Highway staff
Okay,
about that. Future.
Yeah, okay,
If there's a regular meeting coming up, I could just try to attend that
For the bridge or
for the the highway surface street.
Oh, no, there's nothing.
there won't be a meeting for it at all. I mean, it's literally mill and overlay.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
okay,
We're
so,
discussing
yeah,
too
we're,
much.
yeah, this
That's
is
why
a
I
little
need
too
to
close,
get an
yeah.
update on the, when the time is right, the Century Avenue.
The cent-
Diets.
Yeah, the Century Avenue Road Diet Study, and we can lump resurfacing in there.
Perfect. That's all I have. Thanks.
All right, great. Lisa,
I have two. Again, traffic related requests. I got a very thoughtful letter from a resident of Middleton Hills with a bunch of suggestions.
Middleton Glen, not Middleton Hills.
No, it's Middleton Hills. I have two. Remember, I have two. I'm not gonna say this. Anyway, I would like to bring those to the committee's attention. More for discussion like along the lines of the crosswalk safety, how do I proceed to help these people identify what's feasible and what isn't? And then the other one involves Middleton Glen, and that is the Old Creek Road Transportation Work Group, which it's expanded beyond Old Creek Road to Pheasant Branch. They've been in touch with Alex at Middleton Hills because it could impact Middleton Hills.
We're not gonna get
And-
involved.
And that's fine, but I would like to maybe extend an invitation to the people leading that work group to attend one of our meetings so that they too can, share what they're doing and find out what does this committee need from them and when in order to prepare for
yeah,
And what was so the first one was Middleton Hills. What's the issue?
traffic safety improvements.
See. Any specific spot or just the whole thing?
Well, Frank Lloyd Wright is part of it, but it's more than that, bigger.
All right, well, let's leave it general, then we can cover more turf.
any others? Okay. Kendra?
Downtown parking. I don't know that that's the purview of this committee. I've been told in the past that it's not. But I'd like to put it before us again so that we can, either get it in front of Bike Ped Transit or,
CDA.
yes.
Kind of has been.
Yeah,
You've
we
done
did do
parking,
the
no
one
parking.
Yeah,
on Parmenter.
so, yeah, well, I can talk about it.
Okay, so downtown parking. Yeah.
Downtown parking. Okay,
Is that also, I know we talked about it a little bit when we were doing the Parmenter Street and
Yeah.
the reconstruction on the streets downtown.
okay. Do you have any other items?
Just to reiterate, the need. I don't want to feel like we're whack-a-moling all these
Yeah,
because, I mean, if we bring up every sign concern that we have, it's just putting more on Sean's plate.
Right.
Which is why the policies were put in place to figure out how to address these concerns that came before alders and the committee. So I don't want to feel like we're just bringing everything piecemeal if there's a better way to be.
So process.
all right. Process discussion. And anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, I have nothing to add. We've reached the end of our noticed agenda. The meeting is adjourned.
Are you bringing cigars next time?
I'm running the meeting.
Right, you already stiffed us on the champagne.
Yeah,
It's got,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
got-
yeah.
it's got me in charge.
yeah,
We will
I-
expect